There's a Walmart in my town, a massive structure that looms like a monolith on the edge of everything. It's been a fixture for as long as I can remember, a supercenter that never closes its doors. People come and go at all hours of the day and night, whether it's for a late-night snack, a gallon of milk, or whatever they think they need at 3 a.m. The store is bright, artificial lights cut through the darkness, providing a strange kind of sanctuary in a place where time seems to stand still. My town is the epitome of quiet, one of those small, nondescript places where nothing much happens. It's the sort of place people end up in because it's affordable, not because it's desirable. With its small, aging houses, a smattering of fast food joints, and a lone gas station, the town doesn't offer much excitement. The Walmart stands as its heart, the central hub where everyone inevitably ends up for one reason or another, making it a cornerstone of the community despite the mundane life that surrounds it. There's a weird feeling about the place, though. Always has been, if you ask the older folks. The story goes that the Walmart was built on top of the old Ridgeway Asylum. The asylum burned down sometime in the 60s. The fire was supposedly an accident, but if you ask around, you'll hear all kinds of stories. Some people say it was haunted, that the patients rioted, or that something else, something dark, caused the blaze. I never believed any of it. I'm a practical guy. I started working at the Walmart a few years ago. It was an easy job, paid decently for what it was, and I wasn't one to say no to steady work. The late shifts were too quiet sometimes. Walking the empty aisles with just the flickering of the overhead lights for company. It can make your mind play tricks on you. But you don't think about that when you're just doing your job, stocking shelves, cleaning up after hours. I mean, who believes in ghost stories? It all changed one night. It was a Wednesday, I think. One of those mid-week shifts where the store slows down to a crawl by late evening. Most of the employees had clocked out, leaving just a few of us to close. By the time the clock hit midnight, the aisles were deserted, the PA system softly humming the store's usual background music, elevator tunes that got under your skin after a while. I was doing my rounds, walking past the electronics section toward the toy aisle. I'd done this walk hundreds of times. I knew every inch of that store. But as I turned the corner into the toy section, I heard it, a faint noise, almost like laughing. Not loud, but just enough to make me stop. At first, I thought it was just a toy, maybe one of those battery-powered dolls. They tend to go off randomly when their batteries are low. Happens all the time. But this was different. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was soft, almost too real, like a child laughing. I stopped in my tracks, the hair on the back of my neck prickling. The toy aisle was empty. I could see all the way down to the end, and no one was there. Just rows of brightly colored boxes, dolls, action figures, and stuffed animals, all lined up on the shelves like soldiers. But then, something caught my eye. There, on the middle shelf, was a doll. It hadn't been there before, I was sure of it. It wasn't the kind of thing we sold at Walmart. The doll's eyes seemed to follow me as I walked past, and then it glowed. A soft, eerie light radiated from its chest, pulsing faintly in the dim aisle. My stomach dropped. I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat. The laugh, soft, almost playful, echoed through the aisle again, louder this time. That's when I ran. I don't even remember the rest of the night. My legs moved before my mind caught up, my heart racing as I bolted out of the store. I got home that night and tried to calm myself down. I didn't tell anyone who would believe me. It was just a doll, right? I was tired. I hadn't slept well in days. My mind was playing tricks on me. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong with that place. The next day, when I finally finished my tasks and stepped outside, I descended into the underground parking lot, seeking a moment of solitude away from the oppressive store. The lot was a cavernous expanse of concrete and steel, dimly lit by flickering overhead lights that cast a sickly, uneven glow. The hum of the fluorescent bulbs created an unsettling drone that seemed to reverberate off the walls, amplifying every distant sound into an eerie echo. It was then that I saw a shadowy figure standing by one of the parked cars, just beyond the reach of the flickering lights. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, but as I drew closer, the figure became more distinct. It was a tall, dark shape, standing unnaturally still. Panic surged through me. Without thinking, I sprinted toward the nearest exit, my feet pounding against the cold concrete. By the time I reached my front door, I was out of breath. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I considered calling in sick. But I couldn't afford to lose the hours. Rent doesn't pay itself, and I didn't have the luxury of skipping work just because I got freaked out. So, I went back. It was another late shift, and as the hours ticked by, the store gradually emptied out, leaving behind an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on endlessly. I was in the back, surrounded by a maze of boxes and shelves, focused on restocking and organizing items. The task was meant to keep me busy, a distraction from the unsettling events of the previous night. Despite my efforts to stay immersed in the work, the oppressive quiet and the memories of the doll and the shadowy woman were never far from my mind. The storage area was dim, even with the overhead lights flickering sporadically. The shadows cast by the erratic lighting seemed to stretch and shift on their own, creating a disorienting play of darkness and light. Every sound of box dropping, the rustle of paper was amplified, the echoes bouncing off the walls in an unnerving repetition. The cold in the room felt more intense than usual, and it clung to the air, adding to the sense of confinement and unease that settled over me as I worked. I was focusing on my work when I felt it. That prickling sensation again, like someone was watching me. I froze, a box in my hands, and slowly turned around. At first, I didn't see anything, just rows of shelves, dimly lit and filled with old stock. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow darker than the rest of the room, slipping across the wall. It wasn't moving like a person. It was faster, almost like it was floating. I blinked, and it was gone. My heart started racing again. I told myself it was nothing. The lights in the back flicker sometimes, and shadows do weird things. But then I saw it again. The shadow moved toward the storage room door, slipping inside like it was beckoning me to follow. Every part of my brain was screaming at me to leave, but I couldn't. Something pulled me toward that door. I walked slowly, my breath shaky, and pushed the door open. The storage room was cold, far colder than it should have been. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I stepped inside, and the door creaked shut behind me. That's when I saw her. In the far corner of the room, standing in the shadows, was a woman. Her back was to me, her hair long and tangled, her clothes old and tattered. She looked like she had stepped out of another time. My breath caught in my throat, but I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. Slowly, she turned to face me. Her skin was pale, almost ghostly, and her eyes empty, black pits bored into me. Her mouth twisted into a grotesque smile, lips curling unnaturally upward. She whispered something, too quiet for me to hear, but her words sent a chill down my spine. I stumbled back, crashing into the shelves behind me. The noise echoed through the room, but she didn't move. She just stood there, watching me with that awful smile. I ran. I don't even remember leaving the store. All I know is that I was out in the parking lot, gasping for breath, the cold night air stinging my skin. Since that night, I quit the job, left without giving notice, and never went back to that Walmart. Whatever was lurking in the shadows, in those dark corners, could stay there. I wasn't going to be a part of it any longer.